Hello, my name is Mrs. Science, and I will be leading you through a series on executive functioning skills. So today we're going to be doing session number 1, study skills. So there's two types of studying. One type is active study. So in active studying, you're including 2 or more actions or senses in your studying. So for example, you're reading your notes and writing possible test questions. Or you could even be reading your notes aloud. That way you're activating your 2 actions such as reading with your eyes and your voice. Next way is inactive studying. Now in this one, you're only using one action in your study. So you're just reading your notes, or even you're just reading your textbook. Now, which do you think is more beneficial to study? Ding, 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 you got it, active studying. So activating 2 or more actions or senses in your studying will help you learn the information better and help you become a better student. So let's get started on some of the ways that we could actively study. So we have here some ways such as reading notes aloud, writing possible test questions, making connections to the real world and yourself, making mnemonic devices, color coding, and even making your own study guide. Now we're going to go a little more into detail for each one of these. So let's say you want to read your notes aloud. So you can read your notes to someone or anyone that will listen, your parents, your friend, or you could even just read them aloud in your own bedroom, even if you're shy or if there's no one around. You could even act them out. So put a little enthusiasm in them and pretend you're an actor reading a play. You could even sit in your own room and pretend that you are the teacher. Now, in this one, you don't only have to read your notes. You can maybe even read your notes, then cover them up and see what you remember and see if you could teach them to somebody. You don't even need to be sitting in your own room. You can ask your parents to listen, ask a sibling to listen, or even ask your dog to listen. Anyone that will listen. So pretending you're the teacher and teaching them to somebody will even help you see what you already know and what you still need to study. Now, the next one, recording yourself, is also an interesting one. I really like this one because not only are you reading the notes aloud, but then later you can go back and play them back and listen to yourself read them. One example that I have is I know many of my students like to read or listen to music from class to class. Now, wouldn't it be great if you listen to your notes from class to class? And maybe the day of your test, you've heard them all day long. And so when you get to the test, you're ready for your test because you had those few extra moments in between classes to listen to your notes. And the last one, I left this one for last because it's so much fun to read your notes or textbook as a song, or even make up your own song or rap to help you remember your information. Sometimes, even in YouTube, you can always find some raps or something on some of the information that you're learning. So why not make your own? That way you could connect it to yourself, which is a very important, which we'll be talking about later. Now, you could also write possible test questions. If you've already been in a class for a while with the same teacher, then you probably already know what types of questions this teacher likes to give on the test. So you can think to yourself, what questions do you think will be on the test? And sometimes, if you really listen to the teacher carefully, he or she may have hinted what's going to be on the test. So make sure you're always listening for those little hints that the teacher may give, and maybe even jot them down so you can maybe write possible test questions later or add them to your study guide. Sometimes a teacher will keep repeating the same information over and over again, and you may be thinking, I know, but guess what? This information is probably going to be on the test. So remember, make sure you're listening carefully to the teacher so that you can spot some hints that he or she may be dropping so you can write possible test questions or include them in your study guide later. Now, I said making connections was very important. So when you're making connections to what you're studying, you think, what is this reminding me of? What is this similar to what I already know or to my life, my own life? How is this different to what I already know in my own life? How does this relate to my life? Now, let's say you want to remember an important date and it's in January. So your birthday is in January. So that is a great way to relate and make a connection to that date. So you probably won't forget that date because it happened in January and your birthday is in January. So don't forget to always be making connections, not only when you're studying, but when you're reading in general. Now, making mnemonic devices, you may be thinking, what in the world are mnemonic devices? Guess what? You've probably already used it without knowing what they really are. Mnemonic devices are words, phrases, or even songs that help a learner recall facts and information. So for example, when you were in elementary school and you wanted to learn the colors of the rainbow, you probably learned Roy G. Biv. These are the colors of the spectrum: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. In science, you may have already learned Private Tim Hall. Or in grammar, for conjunctions, you may have learned fanboys. In math, you may have learned Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally or PEMDAS. Now, you could always be creative and make your own, or even change up the ones that the teacher gave you. So for example, if you have an aunt that's named Sue, so instead of Sally, you want to use Sue, you could say, Please excuse my dear Aunt Sue. So just be creative in other ways to learn this information. I used to have so much fun to making my own while I was studying for history class. And you can do it too. Just think of some funny words that connect to your learning, and maybe if you need to memorize and order something, you could just memorize your own and make it your own. The next way is color coding. Now, why would you want to color code? Well, here are some ways. One of the ways you can color code is that you can use one color for what you already know and another color for what you don't know. Another way would be to color keywords, one color for keywords, another for general information, another one for dates. To the left, you see one for math notes, and they even used a math key, a color key, which is very important because if you don't make a key to remember what your colors mean, you might forget. So don't forget to make a key to remember what those colors mean. Now, the last way is making your own study guide. Now, I keep telling you to make it your own and do what works for you. And this is exactly why you would want to make your own study guide, even if the teacher already gave you notes. So you want to make your study guide to match your learning style. So if you're a visual learner and you want to add pictures for certain things that are on your notes or in your textbook, why not? There are so many ways nowadays. You could draw your picture, you could even find one online. If you're a more linear learner, just make an outline of your notes or your textbook. You could always make a learning map to organize your information and draw arrows to connect one thing to another. You can make charts to categorize your information. You could even make a chart to categorize the information you know, you don't, and then a column for what you don't know, and another column that you do know, but you may need to study a little more. And the last way is to rewrite your notes your way. So you do you. You make your own study guide to match how you learn. So all in all, my point is, you do what works for you. Study the way that works for you. And don't forget to enhance and activate 2 or more of your senses in order to make studying more efficient. Now don't forget to subscribe below and come back for session 2, time management. See you later.